All right. Raise your hand if you rocking with Dolby Atmos. All right. There we go. All right. So before we dive into the technicalities, Ben, flip that switch on for me. Is it on already? Just push it up. Everybody turn your mic on.
Can you hear me?
Hey, there we go.
Hey, what's happening, everybody?
There we go.
All right.
So before we dive into the technicalities and like everything, I just want you to briefly talk about
All right.
what is Dolby Atmos? Because a lot of people they misconstrue it with other things, different audio formats.
Of course.
Just give us the game real quick.
Well, thank you, and thank you to the EngineEars crew for having me out here. My name is Ben Givarz, Senior Creative Relations with Dolby Laboratories. I'm on the Music Partnerships team based in Los Angeles, and my role is in support of the creative community, all of you. I create a lot of our advocacy content. I work closely with Derek and the EngineEars team to implement the Atmos curriculum that they have on their platform. So shout out to them for doing that and all of you for being here. So at the highest level, Dolby Atmos is an object-based immersive audio format that allows the creator, that could be a mix engineer, mastering engineer, producer, or artist, to place elements of their composition around the listener in a 360-degree space. So those objects can have height, they can have size, they could have movement, they could be used to create separation between different elements of the mix that can reveal detail, nuance, enhanced fidelity. Now, the creative decisions that you make in that mix, those are preserved in the Dolby Atmos master file, which is called an ADM B-Wave, and that mix will translate and scale with creative intent preserved up and down across the playback ecosystem, of which there are over 2 billion, yes, with a B, devices in the marketplace that can play back that Dolby Atmos mix. So at the most basic and highest level, that's what Dolby Atmos is. It started actually as a cinematic experience in 2012 with the Pixar film Brave. Mix engineers started to experiment with that tool set to determine and figure out what could be possible to mix music this way. And a mix engineer named Greg Penny created what's kind of generally referred to as the first Dolby Atmos music mix in Elton John's Rocket Man, which you may have heard. So that's a little bit of background, and I'll leave it at that for you.
No, I just, and also anything that I say is open to anybody. Like, I don't want to just single out people, but I definitely wanted to dive into the background and the history of Dolby Atmos, because I do remember sitting in the theater and I was watching the movie, and the sound went around me and I didn't understand what I was experiencing, and I saw the logo and all that type of shit. So I think that when engineers start to experiment with it with music, from a music perspective, I guess my first question would be to anybody is, did you expect it to become a musical standard? Like when you first either start to see Dolby Atmos integration in music and film, or is that a company thing where, okay, we're gonna make music an initiative for us, or the background behind that?
Well, I'll just say that Dolby has a long tradition of supporting mix engineers in the field, going back to the company's founding. You may be familiar with Dolby noise reduction, going back to the founding of the company. So we've always been in support of the creative community. There are other technologies such as Dolby Vision that support, creators that way. Dolby Atmos is the music format, but in 2015, you could experience Dolby Atmos as part of on an OTT service as part of a film or television experience. There were some physical formats such as Blu-ray that could deliver the experience, and there was some theatrical engagements as well. In 2019, Amazon Music and Tidal became the first two to deliver streaming Dolby Atmos music, and Apple Music came on board in 2021 as part of their standard subscription, delivering Dolby Atmos music as well. So that's a little more in the background, but I'll let the creative folks here that are actually doing this amazing work
you were
take it over.
No, I was going to say, when you mentioned like when seeing it in a movie, if you think about like doing it for music, but I think very early on, I mean, people I've been mixing records for in stereo, they'd be like, yo, I want my shit to sound like a movie, make it big, make it. So even before there was even a thought of having more than just two speakers, just having stereo, we were already thinking about ways to, make things sound like background vocal sounding really wide, or trying to take a sound using phase and making it sound like it was kind of like on the side of your head, or moving things around the room with panners. So I think there was always, at least for me, like I always thought of things in a spatial way as a mixer before there was Atmos. So when the tools came about, it was just like, oh shit, like I could do this in a whole different way with these tools.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, the first time I heard Dolby Atmos, I was introduced to it at the Dolby Theater, and it was a Beatles record, Sgt. Pepper's, that had been mixed in Atmos. We were in that theater, the lights went down, and they played it back, and I heard all the sounds and all the different spatial positions. And at that time, I knew, when we get a hold of this, we're gonna have a lot of fun with it. So to answer your question more directly, I knew when I heard the format that it was going to revolutionize how we created music over the long run.
Do you think that, so you say you knew already, like it was no brainer for you?
Yeah, because I had been waiting, like Duro said, so much time has been spent trying to figure out how to make stereo mixes sound like they're all around us and surrounding us. So once we had the opportunity, I knew that it would take some time for people to adopt the format, but once I saw the tool set, saw how easy it was to create create new ways, I knew that creatives would start to be drawn towards it.
Now, Brian, I don't put you on the spot, but you're a professor, right?
I am.
Okay. Give it up for Professor Brian at USC. A lot of these people raise your hand if you are a student or have been a student in music performance, anything like that. Okay, so the reason why I brought that up is because I want you to talk to the importance of students embracing the Atmos technology and learning it early or even adapting it into their workflow.
Thank you for mentioning the students, because that's where it's at. And I find that the students that I'm teaching now are hyper interested in Dolby Atmos. We are actually building a new Dolby Atmos room at USC as soon as this semester ends. I was just talking to those guys about it over there. And we're embracing it full force. There is nothing to me more indicative of a format that's going to succeed than young people who are enthusiastic about making and creating music, adopting it, and enthusiastically be interested in it. So I think it's a very robust format. I had a young band over the other day listening to an Atmos mix that I did for them for the first time, and their reaction is like most our first reactions when we heard it, like they couldn't believe that their music sounded like that. And I don't know if you guys hear this, the phrase that I hear most often is after a playback, "Wow, I thought I was in the middle of that performance." And that's a testament to this sort of immersive 360-degree playback of extraordinarily good music.
I want you guys and whoever wants to jump in to talk about the barrier to entry for Dolby Atmos. I know Dolby is actively, which I think is super innovative and dope because I'm a Logic user. Yep. And Logic and Apple was an early adopter as far as full integration when it comes to the Dolby Atmos. But talk about the barrier to entry, because some people are on FL Studio, some people are on Reason, some people are on strictly Pro Tools. It just depends. But
yeah, great question. So the tools to create Dolby Atmos music are natively integrated within and or compatible with many of the major DAWs. So native integration within Logic, Pro Tools, Nuendo, Cubase, Blackmagic Resolve. You can use the Dolby Atmos Music Panner as an audio unit or VST plugin within Ableton. It's been used in Fruity Loops as well, FL Studio. So the tools are out there. You can actually download a 90-day trial version of the Dolby Atmos renderer, which will allow you to connect to your DAW. The Music Panner's there as well. There's some mastering tools such as the Album Assembler. But I also want people to know that there are over 800 Dolby Atmos music studios around the world, and these are not Dolby-owned facilities. These are a combination of commercial and private and in-market studios that we know about, many of which meet best practices. And so there are people creating in all sorts of genres, 41 countries plus around the world. It's really amazing. You know, all three of the majors, many of their subsidiaries, and many, many independents are releasing Dolby Atmos music to the world. In fact, in 2022, 87 out of the top 100 year-end Billboard artists released music in Dolby Atmos. So the barrier to entry becomes lower and lower. The tool set is accessible. There are over, as I said, 2 billion devices. There are 14 streaming music services, the three I mentioned, many regional ones such as Angama, Neighbors Vibe, NetEase, just launched in China, QQ Music in China, Melon in Korea. There's Dolby Atmos music in automobiles. There are 8 automobiles that have been announced to the world. You can check out the Lucid and do the car test here if your music's available on Tidal over at the PMC booth. So the barrier becomes lower and lower, and we're in support of the creative community to make sure that those tools are accessible. You can go to professional.dolby.com or see myself or any of my colleagues here, many of which are sprinkled around here, and we can connect you with all of the resources to be able to do this work. Quick start videos, deep dive videos, self-guided learning with downloadable content for whichever DAW you're into. So
I wanted to say, you brought up creative, and I think that's important because it's a craft. Engineering is a craft, production is a craft. I want to talk to these guys about the creative aspect of, I guess, the first project you opened up and dibbled in Dolby with, or mess with, or even where you heard the first mix and inspired you to get involved in it.
It's a lot. I think at our studio in New York over the past year, we've done a lot. We spent a lot of time just figuring it out, seeing what works. I mean, the learning curve. I think if I listen to some of the mixes we did 8-9 months ago compared to stuff now, I'd be like, it's really figuring out how to work, because everyone's so used to listening to everything in stereo, right? And artists, and I think that's been a barrier too, like getting artists to hear their music in a different format than how they originally intended it. So finding a way to find a balance of keeping that integrity of the record, and still being able to pull it out and still make it spatial and make it feel like a full body experience. That's how I think of it. More of like, how do you make this record more emotional, or bringing out more of the emotion that was in the original intent. So for us, I mean, I think as a creative, I think it's like anything else, man. I think you just got to put in the hours, you got to put in the time, experiment, and we're at the frontier of something new.
Yeah.
It's like from when they went from mono to stereo, like we have the opportunity to be a part of this new frontier of the full body experience of music.
Can you guys talk, and Brian just brought this up earlier, but embracing technology, can somebody speak to that? Because I feel like whenever new technology is on the horizon, the quote-unquote legacy or old guard is like, hell no, fuck that, it's not outboard, it's not analog, it's not this. But you guys taking a different approach where you're embracing the new technology and using it to your advantage, using it as a tool. Can somebody speak to the importance of that? Or go ahead.
So, for me personally, I embrace technology. I'm a technologist, right? So, if somebody asks me, what do you make beats with? It's really hard for me to answer that question because I use everything that's in the marketplace. I got to try. I got a Machine Plus, I got an MPC, I got Live, I got Logic, I got, So I don't limit myself to the thing I grew up learning how to produce on, right? So when I got an opportunity the first time to go into Capitol Studios to work on a Atmos mix, I took in some stems from a record I produced called Keep Fighting, right? And it was a record that I had added all of these string sections and orchestra hits. Maybe I picked it because I knew I was going to do this particular type of mix. But once I was in an environment, I had an engineer with me at the time, although I engineer, because I wasn't familiar with the format yet. So I'm just in there, put that over my head and put that string over there. And, you know what I'm saying? So for me, it was like a kid in a candy store taking that record that I had created in stereo and then reimagining it all around me, right? And so if you don't embrace new technology early, I'm an early adopter, right? All you do is end up being left behind, right? And so I think that it's very important, especially if you're an engineer, to be aware of, because there's other things to learn, right? There's as the format develops and the techniques develop, you're gonna have to learn that. So you gotta be first to the party when it's new technology.
Go ahead. You want to?
So I liken it. I was doing A&R in the early 2000s, and the little thing called Napster sort of popped up on our radar. And I remember all of the record executives that I knew and worked for at that time. Oh, nobody's going to want to download streams of music. They're going to want to hold the CD in their hand. They're going to want to read the liner notes. And I'm thinking, holy shit, I was just in Clyde's office, and he pulled up a song off a computer that he didn't own and played it for me, and it sounded okay. Those are the people to me now. When I hear people going, oh, Atmos or immersive, it's not going to last. It's better. It's like electric cars. They're better. And they will win because it's better. People hear this for the first time and they go, holy shit, I can't go back. Yeah. So don't be like an old record executive from 2004 and say, this ain't going to happen, because it's happening.
Why'd you look at him?
Because he's a record executive now.
No. I was like, don't look at him. He's with you. He's with us.
Yeah, I know.
Oh man, that was funny. I just wanted to touch on also. You brought up the car, Ben.
Yeah.
What other places? Because when you think about Atmos, it started out in theater, and that's made its way to our own personal devices, etc. Like every car doesn't have Atmos. Every car is not electric yet.
Not yet.
So. Okay, so that jump, like where does that in between fit?
Again, your mix could end up on one of 2 billion plus devices out there in the world. Automobiles is one place. There are cinemas that are out there, smart speakers, sound bars, home theater systems, tablets, mobile devices, PCs, TVs. All of these places for your mix, like your work, to end up as a immersive experience just continues to grow. Automobile is so cool, right? Because we spend so much time in the car listening to music, but also as creators, we spend so much time checking our mixes in the car and understanding like how that works. And it's a really special way to experience Dolby Atmos. There's a couple of different configurations, but having height speakers that can give you that full immersion and being able to trust that those mix decisions you've made are going to scale with integrity to all of these different playback environments, I think is a key differentiator between Atmos and some other things, right? Like that ecosystem continues to grow, and it builds through feedback from the creative community, letting us at Dolby know what's working and what's needed and what the next step should be. And we'd love for it to end up here. There are now podcasts in Dolby Atmos. There's on the Wondery Plus platform. There's Dolby Live in Las Vegas, which is a 5,200-seat theater with a fully integrated Dolby Atmos system in it for live performance. You may have heard Usher and Aerosmith were the first two artists in residency there. Maroon 5 was just announced, and so there's just more ways for people to experience Dolby Atmos, and more importantly for this crew, more ways for your mixes to get out there in the world. The distribution network is firmly in place. The biggest from like The Orchard to InGroove, CD Baby, Empire, and indies like Avid Play. So that ecosystem is well represented for Dolby Atmos.
From a creative standpoint, we just talked to Jess Jackson earlier, shout out to Jess, and he was talking about the importance of embracing technology, but then we also talked to Josh Goodwin, and Josh was talking about going and back cataloging Justin Bieber's entire catalog in Atmos. He was one of the early adopters in Atmos. Do you guys feel the need to go back and all of the works that have been done already, remix them in Atmos, or?
I think so. At our studio, we did a couple of Temptation albums.
Album?
Yeah, we did about 3 or 4 Temptation albums. We've done Marvin Gaye. And what you realize is when you hear a lot of the masters, they're great songs, and some of them were like stereo, where like the drums were panned hard left or right, or things were just. So when you listen to those things on DSPs now, they don't really stand up to like a lot of the contemporary music, although we love those songs. So it's hard to kind of playlist them and play them with other things. So I think now bringing these records forward and making them palatable for a new, younger audience just extends the life of these songs. And I think it also just helps, even the new creatives who like a way for them to discover these songs and learn things from these songs and how they were made, song structure, melody, what great songs are, and help them like bring even some of those elements into contemporary music. So it helps the old music bring it forward, and I think it educates the younger people on the older music as well.
Were you gonna say something?
It is. I think my main thing that I'm listening now that I want to get across is it's really fun. Like the sounds are really fun. Mixing in Atmos for legacy stuff is challenging because before around 2006-07, we were not as mixers required to provide stems.
And a lot of that stuff is not even on the grid, like the older stuff.
Yeah, it's still most of it's been digitized. So I'm doing a big project now for a really big artist, and of the 5 albums I've been given to do, only one of them has stems. So I'm tasked with taking the multi-tracks, recreating the stereo mix, right, as close as I can, and then making stems from that to put into my Atmos template and finish that project up. Now, I think that's fun work. I enjoy being a mimic. I enjoy the challenge of, God, what combination of those microphones got that drum sound? And I'm a tinkerer. I like doing that. But I can see it takes a lot of patience and
time, and also like research as well, like and a lot of all the Motown stuff, looking to see what gear they use,
what studio was in,
studios, everything, just trying to, like you said, because there were no stems, and some of these records were 3 tracks, some of them were 8, and then the later stuff that we did were like some 16-track stuff. But again, you have to do a lot of research to kind of maintain the integrity of the original recordings, right? Get them to where they were stereo-wise, and then bring them forward with Atmos.
There's been a lot. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
What I want to add to that is that Atmos is not just about flying things around or putting things in every position. Sometimes it's just about enhancing the emotion that might have been captured in the studio, you know what I'm saying, on those old recordings. So sometimes what you can do is reamp the original recording and just give a little information around you, or reverberation, you know what I'm saying. It's not all about just always finding the stems, but creating an experience that's enhanced with what you have, you know what I'm saying.
There's been a lot of talk in the last 2 days about, did you want to ask something?
No, I was just going to say, you can't force immersion. I think that's a thing that, people try to, it's like, it's like when the first time you used a live instrument, like you just start going crazy and overboard. Like, no, you can't you have to do what the song calls for. And every song is not going to be super immersive. And I think that's where a lot of times too, when artists are hearing their music, they're like, why the fuck would I put a snare over, you know what I mean, or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So you can't force it.
A lot of conversation has been happening over the last 2 days about stems, mixing 2-track, etc. For anybody that wants to tackle it, I mean, you kind of just broke it down a little bit, but taking a 2-track and making it into an Atmos mix, is that possible? And then if so, like, how does one start that process or go about that?
A 2-track, single stereo mix?
Yeah. Like if they don't have the stems.
So there are some...
That's something that they want to... I'm telling you, that's what they want to know.
No, I know. And there's some pretty impressive and muscular technology that can extract certain musical elements from a 2-track or even a mono mix. They work sometimes really well and sometimes not so well. And it's a lot to do with phase relationships and how it breaks out. But it can be done. I don't know if I should name all those technologies now, but there are AI-based algorithms that can look at a 2-track stereo mix and say, okay, I'm going to extract the drums from that. I'm going to extract the lead vocal from that. I'm going to extract strings and other identifiable sonic imprints, and then you can use that to surround and immerse yourself in that mix.
Yeah. So with source separation, like Brian was speaking about, the AI part is just the first step of it. It's once you have those stems, what you do with them and how you manipulate them. And there's a lot of issues with phase and a bunch of different things that you really have to spend a lot of time figuring out how, it's a lot of, EQ, like you just get a lot of filtering and EQing and figuring out what elements you can still, even after you've used the AI, to then further extrapolate from those stems to, place them and put them in different places, to whether you're adding verb to them, reverb, but then that's when the actual mixing, that's where you're using more than just the regular tools in the regular Atmos tools to spread things around the rooms. It's where now you're going to into mixing of the elements and trying to, I guess, create further stems from the. It's hard to explain it without actually having maybe a screen to do a demo, but we've been doing a lot of source separation, and we've been able to do some things that people don't actually believe we did from source separation. But I think it's an interesting space, and it's I think, I guess we'll have to do some demos.
Okay. I'm sure they'll take a live demo. Ben, the new 5.0 renderer just dropped.
Yep.
What's the difference between what's the upgrade?
Yeah, so it takes the best of our two previously existing products, which was the Dolby Atmos Mastering Suite and the Dolby Atmos Production Suite, and combines it into one product at a lower price point. So previously you needed to have the Mastering Suite to be able to do room EQ and have array mode. So that's now supported in the Renderer 5.0. There's native support for Apple Silicon. You can now retain your trim and down mix controls. There's 96K support for archiving, and at a lower price point as well. So more support for more machines, and an easier point of entry, lowering the barrier, as you said as well. So there's a free download available on professional.dolby.com that you can get your hands on. And Dolby Atmos renderer. We have Jordan Glasgow here from our tools team as well that can certainly answer further questions for you.
I want to know something personal from each of you. Your favorite Atmos mixes that you've heard or been done. I know it'd be hard to narrow it down. Let's just do two if you can. No favoritism to any artist, but just your own personal that you've heard or participated in, where it's you know what, this shit is good.
I did a mix with Leon Bridges and Jasmine Sullivan, and that was really fun for me because of the way it was recorded and stemmed out. I was able to be really not like what you were saying, it's not about flying stuff around the room, but it's about placing things in a really emotional spot. And when Jasmine's verse comes in, she's in the back of the room, and Leon was in the front of the room. And when people hear that, they're astounded that the two singers are now facing each other rather than both facing the audience. And that moment when you realize, wow, she's facing him for her verse, and then when they sing together, the stereo image is turned on its side, because now it's front back instead of left right. And then I've got cymbals on at the high, and his guitar is kind of all over, and it's a pretty emotional and a good rendition of that song. I didn't cheese it out. I just made it different. And
anybody else? Not chicken?
You've heard that and you hate it.
No. I'm interested to hear it when because that's the one thing right now we're so, I think, because we work with artists that are everyone that's so used to hearing everything in stereo, and I'm wondering when will it change where we're not so focused on left and right, and it's just a room, and we're just able to place things, because we're still not training, but people are still learning to hear it in a different way. So, but as far as a mix, it's hard because again I'm super critical, and I feel like every time I hear a new mix, I'm hearing something new, and it's getting better and better. It's still so early, and like we're talking about like where people can hear these mixes, and as I think more cars are coming out and all these things, it's actually giving us time as creatives to get better at mixes, so that once everyone has access, like these mixes could just be so much better. But I just feel like it's hard to pick one because everyone is just like.
Yeah, I've been a part of some great mixes, some of which aren't commercially released. I've heard some great mixes, but I actually started a program where I'm doing these immersive creative camps every week at one of our studios, and creating in the format, right? So as you was just speaking about, breaking the stereo confine, right? In those sessions, I'm not thinking about the music as being in front of me, right? So I finally got it to work, and I pulled up a keyboard, a synthesizer, and I had the panner next to me, right? And I was actually facing to the side and not directly towards the speakers. So as I was playing, I grabbed the panner and panned the instrument over near me, right? And when I did that, it was a breakthrough for me, because it was like, oh, I could actually just put things as I'm composing, and create an intent that is not facing stereo front, right? So when I think about the most amazing things I've heard in the format, they're these experiments where I've broken those rules that, stereo, I'm supposed to sit in the sweet spot and listen right here, So there's a whole nother frontier that I'm just exploring.
I was going to ask that. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I don't want people to let that fly by. Did you hear what he said? It's not just about things all around you. You can take an object and put it right next to your ear, and it's startling, right? And when you do that, and it's using a combination of all the speakers in your physical space it's an illusion the way a phantom mono center is when you send the same signal to the left and right. So you can bring objects very close to you, and then the next second they're very far away, or a different object is very far away, and it just lends this dynamic to the process that I don't think enough people doing Atmos are experimenting with that. That's why I didn't want to let that go, because that's really important.
I was going to jump on that too, not to cut you off, sorry, but people spend tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds, building their rooms, right? Constructing the perfect room with the perfect sweet spot, proverbial sweet spot, right? But is that still applicable with Atmos? Is that still a thing at this point, when you can take, like you said, a guitar or an instrument and bring it right here and put it wherever you want in the room?
I think that there's still a sweet spot, because when you listen to things back in a consumer environment, there's gonna, like, let's say a car, right? You're gonna be sitting in your seat in the car and relative to the speakers. I guess what I'm speaking more towards is breaking the concept of the experience is only supposed to be in one spot, right? Because when you listen to an Atmos mix in an Atmos studio and you walk around, you hear different things. That was one of my early experiences. Was I walked over to the corner and said, "Oh, I never heard that drum break right there," right? So, when I personally, as a creative, look forward in this format, I wanted to have that ability to discover artistic intent that was hidden and layered before in the stereo space, right?
It's more creative.
Yeah.
Ben, go ahead, sorry.
I just want to say too, I listen to a lot of Dolby Atmos between when I'm switching from one song to another. I just turn on Apple Music and listen to Atmos, through Apple TV. And a hip hop track came on just 2 days ago, and everything was in the middle, and just a few little things sprinkled around the side. And I realized, wow, at a party, right, if you're in a gathering of a lot of people and they're all sort of milling around, Atmos is kind of the perfect, like, destroyer of the sweet spot. It's like everywhere is the sweet spot. And that's another thing that's, like I say, like everybody here's been saying, this is we're on the frontier here. And I listen to all this music because I want to hear what other people are doing, and it's giving me ideas. And that was a really big sort of revelation for me, like, oh, what sweet spot, you know?
You should come by the creative camp when you get some time.
Where's that?
You should come by the studio when you get some time and check out some of these experiments.
Yeah, I will.
Ben, I have this is a ground level. This is not for the engineers. This is for the people at home that are like me. What is the difference between Dolby Atmos and spatial audio? Because I have no idea.
That's a great question. So Dolby Atmos is the format that the music is mixed in. Spatial audio is kind of a term for an immersive music experience. One service in particular uses their combination of hardware, software, and services to provide Dolby Atmos mixes through that service. But
so
it's
Dolby
kind of
is still at the basis of it.
If you're listening to spatial audio through Apple Music, for example, you're listening to a Dolby Atmos mix.
There you go. That's what I went down a YouTube wormhole, lasted about an hour and a half, trying to figure this shit out. But
I got you, man.
That was 30 seconds. I appreciate that. The partnership between Atmos and EngineEars, can you speak to that? Because I feel like, is anybody here certified Dolby Atmos? Oh, fire. Okay.
You know, I mean, Derek and the EngineEars crew, they've always been on the cutting edge of technology, but as important, they've been providing resources for mix engineers, not only in mixing, but in how this entire business fits together, right? Everything from like, what do you need to do to distribute it to the right place? What do you need to do to make sure that you're getting paid correctly, right? This whole network of services. And I think that it makes a lot of sense for them to be on the forefront and the cutting edge of a new business opportunity for mix engineers in Dolby Atmos, because it is a separate master, right? And so they were very early on. Derek was like, I want to implement this into my platform. So he worked very closely with us and Dolby Institute in particular to tailor the curriculum to what the needs of his partners or his customers, all of you, needed. And so that can be done because we are in support of the creative community as well, right? And so he said, here are the things that we need. This is what's important to us. And we partnered and said, great, here's how you can do it. He implemented it into his platform, and he's been holding these certification sessions around the world. I was involved in the first one along with Brian at United, and I think that it's only a partnership that's going to continue to grow, and I think that people can take a lot of inspiration for what Derek and the EngineEars team are doing here, not just in Atmos, but in providing resources for the creative community to be successful all the way around in their business.
What's next? Like, what's the evolution of Dolby Atmos? I don't want to give away, lose your gig by giving us a trade secret or anything like that, but just give us a direction in which you see Dolby Atmos going, or if you can give us an inside look.
It's just going to continue to grow. I mean, 14 plus streaming music services, 8 automobiles, 2 billion plus devices. It's just going to continue to grow, and there's, like I said before, there are going to be more places for your mixes to be heard by your listeners and your fans. The tools are going to continue to be accessible. They're going to evolve. They're going to be creative. I mean, the Legendary Trackster said it here. You know, there are mix engineers and producers and artists that are creating with Atmos in mind. They are thinking about a spatial or an immersive experience from the beginning, right? And it's creating new ways of working and new ways of expression and new ways of like breaking the barriers down to what was previously impossible. So just more ways.
I have 2 stupid questions, and you can just indulge me, and then we'll get to some Q&A. The first stupid question is, can you mix in Dolby Atmos in regular just headphones?
Yep.
First question. And then the second stupid question is, can you record vocals in Dolby like straight, like in real time? Is that a thing?
There are people that are experimenting with doing that, for sure. And yes, you can get started mixing in headphones on a laptop. It's always recommended that you reference your mix in a real studio. A 714 configuration is the recommended reference and mixing configuration, because just like in stereo, you really want to make sure that you understand how that mix is going to translate in a room. right? And really understand how that's going to also translate to a consumer device. So you get the best chance of ensuring that translation is going to be accurate by referencing in a studio. But yes, you can absolutely get going on headphones, and many people do. Logic Pro is a great example of an all-in-one system that you can just, if you have 10.7 or above and a laptop and a pair of headphones, you can get going. So
thank you, Dolby Atmos Experience. Y'all make some noise for these guys. Make sure you hit up engineers.com, scan the barcode. Thank you.